Luffy and the gang will finally make it to Alabasta today, but before they do, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this video with a friend, and join the Discord server down below. And with all that being said, let's jump into One Piece Volume 18, Ace Arrives, featuring chapters 156 to 166. Part 1, Fire Fist Ace. This will cover chapters 156 to 159. While most of this introductory section of the volume deals with the introduction of Ace, and trust me, I want to talk about Ace, we need to start with the crew's encounter with Mr. 2, who lands on the ship while Chopper, Usopp, and Luffy are fishing. In the last volume, Vivi explained how Baroque Works agents are classified, and how the agents with numbers higher than 6 are considered to be officer agents, representing the strongest members of Baroque Works, and come equipped with Devil Fruit abilities. Mr. 2 is one of these officer agents, and his Devil Fruit ability is a frightening one, being able to change his appearance and body to match that of anybody whose face he is able to touch. This is a big deal for 2 reasons. First, Mr. 2 managed to touch the faces of a few members, meaning he can now mimic the face and body of Luffy, Zoro, Chopper, Nami, and Usopp. Secondly, while Mr. 2 is showing off the individuals who he can mimic, Vivi notices her father's face in his shuffle, meaning that Vivi's father has likely been compromised and is now fully in the control of Baroque Works. This is when things take a surprising turn, as Mr. 2 leaves the ship and was overall a fairly benevolent character who does not seem to be ruthless or sadistic like Mr. 5 or Mr. 3. But more surprisingly, Zoro comes up with a plan on how to overcome the new obstacle that Mr. 2 has presented them with. Now, typically you might expect someone like Sanji or Nami to come up with a bold strategy to overcome an obstacle like this, but in this case, it's Zoro, and honestly, his strategy is a good one. The crew all tie a white cloth on their arm, allowing them to identify each other in the event that Mr. 2 attempts to mimic a member of the crew. The white cloth not only serves as the method of identification, but also as a sign of the crew's friendship and dedication to one another. And as the crew arrive at the port town of Nanohana, Luffy runs off in search of food, unaware of the danger that is waiting for him in the cafe. This is when we not only see the return of Captain Smoker and Tashigi, who are led to Alabasta thanks to Mr. 11, but also where we encounter Luffy's brother, Portgas the Ace, for the very first time. So let's start off by talking about Ace. He is just as goofy as Luffy, managing to fall asleep while eating, and also shares the same D initial that we discussed last time. But he's also drastically different. He has manners, apologizing to the family when he crashed through their wall, and formally greets Luffy's crew by bowing. But outside of his personality, Ace is incredibly powerful, being the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, a name that invokes fear in all those who hear it, and also holding the power of the Flame Fruit, giving him the ability to control fire and allowing his body to become fire, an ability similar to Smoker and the Plume Fruit. And because of this, he's actually able to battle Smoker, something Luffy was not able to do back in Loguetown. And if Ace being able to go toe-to-toe with Smoker wasn't already impressive enough, we see Ace destroy an entire Baroque Work fleet using a single move, his signature Fire Fist. So yeah, Ace is insanely powerful and he has a cool design to match. Unfortunately, Ace's introduction is short-lived, as he reveals that he is searching for Blackbeard and needs to capture him, as he killed a fellow member of his crew while serving under Ace. But before he leaves, Ace hands Luffy a tiny scrap of paper, saying that it will eventually lead them back together, whatever that means. And this is literally all we see of Ace, and I am really mixed on this introduction, especially because of the filler episodes from the anime. On one hand, it was nice to see Ace spend time with the crew in the anime, and allowed us as an audience to get a better feel for Ace as a character, but on the other hand, I think Ace might work better having less time in the spotlight, increasing intrigue around him and making any subsequent appearances more impactful and memorable. I will keep this in the back of my mind moving forward and make sure to share my thoughts going on in the story. But while Ace and Luffy were catching up, the remainder of the crew managed to get supplies, and the group is now ready to make their way to the Yuba Oasis in order to stop the rebel forces from attacking. Part 2, The Desert Adventure. This will cover chapters 160 to 164. As you have likely noticed from this arc in particular, there are multiple stories happening at once and often run parallel with one another, and this section is no different. While we primarily deal with the Straw Hats making their way to the Yuba Oasis, we also have the meeting of the officer agents happening at the same time, including the introduction of a few members who we have not met before. Mr. 4, Miss Merry Christmas, Miss Doublefinger, and Mr. 1. Importantly, none of these officers appear to get along and are constantly at each other's throat. We don't see much from them here, however, outside of the group being picked up and transported to a new location to discuss Operation Utopia. Now, back to our main crew, I want to discuss the group's journey for a bit before mentioning two major revelations found in this section of the volume. As I have said before, Oda finds a way to include so many details when crafting the settings of his story, and the desert is no different. We find out that despite the awful heat, long-sleeved clothing is required, as the intense heat will cause severe burns if one's skin is not protected, and the temperature drops to extremely cold levels at night. Oda's creativity also extends to the animals we encounter during our desert adventure. The animals we encounter include the Kung Fu Jugon, an animal that fights, and if beaten, will follow the victor as their new apprentice. Evil herons, birds that trick travelers into believing that they are injured and will steal supplies when they trick their victims. The giant Sandoran dragon, which buries itself in sand and will leap at unsuspecting travelers. And finally, Eyelash the camel, who Luffy manages to save from the dragon, but will only allow women to ride on his back. All these animals have their own unique gimmick, which is not only incredibly fun and entertaining, but also shows how much thought and detail went into stuff like this. Now we need to backtrack quickly to discuss a revelation made by Vivi when the group arrived in Eremalu, namely why the rebels turned on her father in the first place. The outrage of the rebels stems from the use of a substance known as dance powder. This powder creates artificial rain, but was banned by the world government after people discovered a horrifying side effect. In order to create the artificial rain, the dance powder would absorb moisture from surrounding areas, leaving those areas without any rain, leading to disastrous results such as a depletion of natural resources and horrifying droughts. Crocodile planted the dance powder in order to cause the citizens of Alabasta to believe that their king was depriving them of natural resources and essentially placing a monopoly on rain. This revelation makes Luffy that much more willing to find Crocodile, and this willingness follows him and the rest of his crew as they arrive at the location of our second big reveal, the Yuba Oasis. As the group arrives at the Yuba Oasis, they make a discovery that turns Vivi's plans upside down. The rebels have moved their base to Katsotera, all the way back near Nanohana. In fact, almost everyone has left Yuba following a massive sandstorm, except for one man, who Vivi recognizes and is revealed to be Todo, the father of the rebel leader Koza, and a friend of Vivi. This is when we have a flashback to Vivi's childhood and we learn all about her friendship and relationship with Koza, Todo, and the true nature of her father. Vivi's father Cobra was a benevolent man who attempted to help Todo in his time of need, even after his son Koza broke into the palace to yell at him, and went on to beat up Vivi. But despite all of this, Vivi and Koza would go on to become great friends, with Koza going so far as naming Vivi his second in command of their childhood friend group, the Sand Band, and even protecting Vivi from bandits who attempted to hold her for ransom. This flashback not only added context to Vivi's relationship with Todo, and gives us a look back at how the people have been impacted by Crocodile and his men, it also shows us why this entire mission is so important to Vivi. Vivi isn't doing this just for her kingdom, but she is literally carrying the weight of all of her friends, family, and those she loves on her back. And the longer we wait, the more dangerous her situation becomes. And with the knowledge we have now, we watch as the Baroque Works agents finally prepare for their meeting with Crocodile. Part 3, Operation Utopia. This will cover chapters 165 to 166. This final part of the volume is by far the shortest, but covers two major events, which we're going to talk about before ending off the episode. The first of these two events is the meeting of the officer agents in the Rain Dinners Casino. located in Rain Base. It is here that for the first time, Crocodile reveals himself as the person behind the Mr. Zero persona, and also shows off his ruthlessness as Mr. 3 arrives, having secretly followed the agent's escort to Rain Dinners in order to ask for forgiveness. This is when Crocodile realizes that he was tricked by the Straw Hats all the way back in Little Garden and takes his anger out on Mr. 3. Crocodile has sand-based abilities, but this also allows him to absorb the moisture from a person's body, something that he does to Mr. 3 before dropping him down into a cellar, where he will be eaten by Crocodile's banana gators. This is a powerful display by Crocodile, and it also results in him instructing the agents to kill the Straw Hat Pirates on sight, setting up an eventual clash between the two groups. And speaking of our pirate crew, what are they currently up to? Well, Luffy has decided to quit and is refusing to go any further. This sets up the second major event to end off the volume, namely Luffy fighting with Vivi. This entire time, Vivi has done everything in her power to avoid placing others in danger and attempting to save as many people as she can. And Luffy is tired of this, and lets Vivi know that she can't be the only one to risk her life. This causes Vivi to burst into a fit of rage, punching Luffy and screaming at him, saying that he could never be able to understand what she is going through. But this is when Luffy tells her that she needs to allow the crew to help her, because they are her friends, and she can't do this alone. This causes Vivi to step back and cry. We can feel the pain she's been suffering through this entire time, worrying about her friends, her family, her loved ones, and seeing what Crocodile has done to her country. Seeing someone like Toto, a once plump man, now reduced to skin and bone, is a perfect representation of how Crocodile has impacted the people who call Alabasta home. He's left them hungry, desperately needing resources, and yearning for someone to help. And while Vivi might have believed that she was the only one who could help, her new friends are ready to step up and fight for their friend in the next volume. But that does it for this episode. I apologize for missing Monday, but hopefully the schedule should be back on track next week. But until then, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord down below, and most importantly, have a great weekend. I will see you all on Monday.